Good afternoon. This is Rich Nass with Open Systems Media, and I am here for this week's installment of 5 Minutes With. This week, I have the pleasure of speaking with Alex Varshavsky, the CEO of Talksum. Hello, Alex. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Richard?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you for asking. Okay, so you're the CEO of Talksum, and I wonder if there are folks out there who are not familiar with Talksum. So before we get started, would you mind just very briefly explaining who Talksum is and what company does?
Yeah, Talksum is a high-speed data processing and management company. So we are in the so-called big data space. We all understand that processing large volumes of data coming at a high speed not only requires vast computing resources, but it also takes a long time. So to reduce that delay in time between data is received and when one can start making decisions, that's the mission of Talksum.
Okay, so just to be sure we're all on the same page, because there are different definitions of big data. What is your definition of big data, and what exactly does that mean to you?
I'm smiling. I've been asking this question for years now, and I still don't have a good answer. Right? A few years ago, IBM gave 3 V's of big data. We're all familiar with volume, variety, velocity. But really, what is big data? Let me give an example. One of our clients, they built a high-performance computer, right? It's a supercomputer, and they have clusters that process petabytes, petaflops. What petaflop is, that's a billion of trillions of floating point operations. That sounds like really, really impressive. Billions of trillions, that's 10 in the power of 15. Clearly, that's big data. On the other hand, some of our clients, they're hospitals, and they have maybe 1,200 beds altogether, right? So really, my definition of big data is when for each particular customer, the amount of data, their data becomes a big problem. That's a big data problem. I know it's really vague, but it's hard. It's not the volume. Volume for what seems a lot for some people, maybe nothing for others. It's all together. When it is a big problem for you, this is your big data problem.
Sure, that makes sense. So are you involved more in the moving of the data around or the analytics around that data?
It's a good question. In our solution, it's even hard to differentiate, right? We're understanding of data, we're analytics, we're processing data, they're bordering each other. So the idea, the Talksum idea, is that with that exponential growth of data, today's solutions, which all are based on let's first store the data and then we'll try and make sense out of it. That's a traditional approach. And what we're seeing is that with exponential growth of data, the traditional approaches are not enough. And here at Talksum, we first try to understand the data, make sense out of it, and then we make the decisions whether data needs to be moved around or routed, or it needs to be filtered, or it needs to be counted, aggregated, correlated. So the difference is kind of blurred between processing and analysis.
Okay, that's a fair point. That's a very fair point. Now, is this any different from what we've done in the past by moving all this data around? I mean, I know there's a lot more data today than there was before, but is it pretty much the same thing, just that there's so much of it now?
So moving data is also a very interesting point. Let me give you an example, a car example. Today cars have like thousands of sensors, right? An average Ford, new model of Ford can produce tens of gigabytes of data per hour. Now, what do we do with that data? For the most part, we drop it on the floor, right? Or maybe when you go to service, they take it out of OBD port. Now, and the problem is that it's really hard to move all the data to the data center. That all data need to be shifted, or we can pre-process it. We can aggregate, correlate data. We can extract anomalies. We can react in real time and move only those relevant parts of the data. So yeah, with this question, it is very, very important. We should stop moving all data. We should stop creating multiple copies of the data, but rather being able to process that data and then distribute only relevant parts, relevant subsets of the data to the consumers.
Okay, this is a very interesting topic, and I think we could talk about this for a very long time. However, we call this 5 minutes with, and we have used up our 5 minutes. But I do want to take 1 second just to ask you another question. I see in your bio you have a degree in geophysics. Please tell me how you correlate geophysics with big data.
That's a good question. So my passion with working with data starts early in my career. Starts with my master's degree in processing and interpreting geophysical data. So what I'm doing today, even though I'm not necessarily in geophysics, but I'm applying the same principle, and they go across different industries, whether it's oil and gas, retail, banking, financial, automotive. Key principles are the same: complex processing and interpreting of the data. Yeah, it is very similar. I'm seeing it across all these different verticals. And definitely my experience in geophysics helps me today with all other kinds of data.
Okay, and in this case, I'm going to take your word for it. That was our 5-minute interview with Alex Varshavsky, the CEO of Talksum. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much, Rich.